When I was about 10 or 11 years old, maybe younger than that, the movie Mulan came out. And Mulan quickly became one of my most favorite Disney movies. It was a movie that I resonated a lot more with than I did with other Disney princess movies. And the reason was because Mulan was this example of warrior woman strength, this part of me that I really wanted to experience. I saw this heroine on the screen that exemplified this hero that came to save the Chinese people from the Huns and from the total destruction of the Chinese Empire. This one woman who was able to do that through her own journey of putting aside her vulnerabilities and her femininity in order to become a strong woman, where she was able to fight alongside strong men and become this warrior princess that to me was such a desirable thing to be. One of the things that I really noticed when I was growing up in the schools I went to was that guys really liked athletic girls. And athleticism and girls who were able to play sports with guys and be able to do the same things guys did or boys did, they were really hot. And that is something I noticed from an early age. And I didn't really feel that way. I didn't feel like I was athletic. I didn't feel like I was able to keep up with sports with guys or play football or soccer or anything else. I really wanted to, though, because I wanted that attention that often came with the athletic abilities that I saw girls have. And this was what I discovered with Mulan as well. She was the example and that archetype of the warrior that I deeply desired to embody myself. And when I then discovered later in life that this was an archetype that was actually quite a big part of who I was when I went through my journey of fitness and strength training, I also then realized that through becoming the warrior that I really wanted to be when I was 8 or 10 years old, I also then did the same thing Mulan did, which was put aside my vulnerabilities, my femininity, my more kind of girl, womanly attributes in order to become this heroine that I deeply desired to be when I was younger. Like I said, in that process, when I became a fitness instructor, a personal trainer, a strength trainer, a kettlebell coach, I also then pushed aside my vulnerabilities and my emotions and my more sensitive side, because there was a part of me that thought that if I did that, then I would be desirable, I would be more liked, people would appreciate me more, and which they did. I got a lot of attention for the strength that I built over the years. And this was a thing that was really interesting on my journey, because when I then look back and I saw how much of my vulnerability I pushed aside and why I did that, it all started making sense that this warrior woman that became a very strong part of my identity, she was there to protect me from feeling emotional vulnerability. All through, or a big portion of my teenage years and my 20s, I was not well. I had a lot of issues with my mental health and emotional health. And one of the ways that I got out of that was through building physical strength. So while I was able to build myself out of that or those moments of feeling really weak emotionally and internally through building physical strength, I in the process also repressed my emotional sensitivity. And this was a part of the healing journey that I didn't realize at the time. I thought that by just becoming that warrior, hero, and personal trainer, kettlebell coach that I became kind of known for, that would take care of all the emotional vulnerability I felt on the inside. And this is the whole point. When it comes to inner strength, we might often feel like it has to do with physical strength and what we're able to do on the outside, how much we're able to do, how hard we're able to work, how much we're able to lift. These are attributes that in society really are venerated and are really lifted up and valued, while true inner strength, at least in my opinion, is the inner ability to be with ourselves and all parts of ourselves that are sensitive and also vulnerable, to be able to be with emotional vulnerability and softness, and to make space for it, to make space for the anxiety, to make space for the sadness, to make space for the younger parts of us that might feel weird or not good enough or not what society would consider valuable or attractive, to let those parts also be a part of who we are, and to allow ourselves to feel that softness and that vulnerability and those qualities that would be more considered feminine qualities. And this is the thing, when we can find a space within our own being that is centered, that is grounded, that is able to be with the fire as well as the water that we all have within us, that is where we find our inner strength. And what I mean by that in practical terms is just being able to notice when we feel vulnerable, when we feel like something around shame might come up, or inner judgment, or judgment from other people, or a trigger, that we're able to be with the response that we notice in our bodies and be able to go deeper if needed, to explore where it comes from. Is this an inner child part of me? Is this a younger part of me that is feeling vulnerable and not good enough, or is feeling sensitive? And create the space for that part of us to be seen, heard, and understood and felt. This, to me, is true inner strength. And again, it's not actually to let the vulnerability steer us. It can, for sure. Sometimes we have to lead with our vulnerability, and that is an incredibly important part of our journey, to feel our emotions, to lead with our emotions. But it's not necessarily to constantly be in that state of vulnerability, but it's to have space for it so we can choose how we want to respond in a certain situation. If we're with a partner, if we're feeling vulnerable, we're feeling angry, we're feeling sad, or we're feeling hurt, or we're feeling judged, that we're able to notice that within us and be able to, for example, communicate it and be open. Like, hey, I'm feeling this vulnerability right now. Can you help me XYZ? Or I have this need I might need to help get, if you're able to do that, if you're able to help me with that. Or if it comes to expression on social media, or our creativity, showing our creativity and the work that we want to give out to the world, to be able to meet perhaps judgment or criticism either from other people or ourselves, and notice what comes up within us and be with that part of ourselves from a grounded, centered space. And to lead that part of ourselves, notice what its needs are, notice what we might need, and to, instead of not necessarily leading from that space, but knowing what we need for that part to feel seen and heard. And usually, almost always actually, that starts within ourselves. And it also means that when our vulnerability comes forward, and we don't always have time to go into the inner work around it and to become aware and go into the groundedness and do all the somatic things. Sometimes we just we react, we respond from that space, or we lead from that space, which is great, which is also wonderful. It's where we're aware of that part of ourselves and we're able to both be with it ourselves and notice it and create space for it within ourselves, and to create space for it outside of ourselves and with other people. This is, again, what true strength is, finding that space within us that is grounded, that is centered, making space for all parts of ourselves, no matter what they are, no matter how much we respond from our triggers from an unconscious place, or we respond from a space of, okay, I'm feeling this vulnerability and I'm able to express it to someone else that I love, or I'm able to be with this part of myself that feels judged right now. That, to me, is true inner strength. And while we can bring in all other aspects of physical strength and our training abilities and our abilities to be expressed and courageous in the ways that we choose to be in our own self-expression, it's also the ability to be with whatever vulnerability and parts of ourselves that we might not have known on the inside before. That, again, is the true grounded inner strength that I see.